I'd like to introduce our moderator, my colleague and friend, Laura King, our Vice President of Business Development.
You're going to have to stand up and down a lot. Let's make sure I don't fall off here. Woo! All right. Pump the music. Up, up, up. Do your favorite dance move. Corny dance move. Come on. I'm not kidding. Corny dance move. The lawnmower? No? The shopping cart? Guys, come on. Dance. Pump it. All right, so if any of you know me, you know I'm OCD, and I plan like crazy. So my panel had a planning meeting, but I didn't tell them this part. You guys are gonna dance your way up to the stage while everybody dances with you. So pull out your fun dance move, the lawnmower, the shopping cart. What do you got? Who's coming first? All right, Amanda, pump that music, everybody dance. Oh, Tori's coming. What do you got, Tori? Oh, the Baywatch jog. Ooh, I like it. Ooh, go Jill with the spin. Woo! All right, Pam Zigger. So thank you all. I am Laura King. I'm our VP of Business Development, and I have an amazing panel here with me. I'm going to have them introduce themselves in just a minute, but a little more interaction. You're going to raise your hands for this, okay? How many in this room lost their job due to COVID? Now, I know these numbers are a little skewed because World Travel didn't lay off or furlough anyone. All right, how many know somebody that lost their job in the travel industry or elsewhere due to COVID? That's a lot of hands. So 8.8 million in North America lost their jobs in 2020 and 7.49 million in 2021. That's insane. That's crazy. How many of you know someone who left the travel industry completely? It was a little scary. No one knew what was going to happen, right? Kind of scary. How many, shifting a little bit, how many of you know a college-aged young adult who had their college experience altered or changed or had to come home? That's a lot of hands, right? It was a weird, weird time. And then how many of you know a college-aged young adult who is opting to do something different than just going to a standard four-year college? Yeah, interesting, right? It's interesting how COVID affected things. So, and I recently read an article on CNBC that stated that in 2022, the number of undergrads enrolled in college nationwide was down 9.4%. That's 1.4 million students. That's crazy. That's a lot. Looking for something different, just not wanting to go to college, not seeing the return. So it's very interesting. So how are we going to promote the travel industry, bring new blood in moving forward, and promote our amazing industry? And how do we grow? So we're going to dive into that with this panel. So I am going to go down the line, and we're going to do introductions. And with your introduction, I want you guys to say how you got into the travel industry. So was it planned? Did you go to school for it? Or as Amanda and I joke, her technical term was she got plopped. So if you got plopped, maybe your technical term is getting plopped. But if you could introduce yourself and then say how you got into the industry.
Yeah, so I'm Amanda Gergich. I'm the lead commodity manager at First Solar. I manage all of our indirect sourcing, which includes the travel program. And to go back just a little bit, I started in college as a chemical engineering major. I got about 3.5 years through my program and asked my dad to lunch one day to tell him that I hated it and that I was done. And I was over school, and I couldn't picture myself doing that for my life. So he gave me very solid advice, and he said, don't throw away the last 3.5 years. You don't have to do chemical engineering, but you should finish your degree. You're very close to the end. Don't give up now. And he said, you've always had an interest in business, and it's a very general, subject matter. You can do a lot with it. So if you are lost, that might be a good option. So not wanting to let him down, because that's just who I am, I suffered through, and I picked my major based on how many credits I had that were already applicable to so that I could reduce the time in college that I was spending. And because I was so heavy on math and engineering, finance was the one that had the least amount of credits. And as I was talking to my mom, it was between finance and marketing. And I said, Mom, what do you think, like finance or marketing? And her quote to me, which I still remember her saying this, like I can picture her, she said, well, you've always loved money. And so a finance graduate was born from that. So I started my career as a cost accountant. I moved to a couple of different manufacturing companies, and finally got to like an FP&A, a forecast planning and analysis role. Was hired at First Solar as one for a brand new plant that they had opened up. And I was offered about 2 years in an opportunity to move to the sourcing team as a commodity manager, which I had no idea about, and travel obviously was one of the things that I was taking over. So I was really unsure about it, but I figured, I'm not one to turn down a challenge, so I took the role, and it's been about 2.5 years, and I've just tried to really immerse myself in the travel industry and the travel world and learn as much as I could, since it's so far out of my comfort zone. So that is how I got plopped into travel.
Thank you, Amanda.
That's an awesome story, plopped. I might use that. I'm Tori Passons. I work at U.S. Bank in partnerships within the corporate payments division of partnerships. And I did not see travel coming at all. I'm not sure if it was plopped or hijacked, but it was Ivan Amana's fault. As you two know...
It was a dark, stormy
Yes.
night. If you asked Tori the question, it was like he met his wife.
It's a good story. So I met Ivan Amana, truly, December 2nd, 2014. It was actually during the day. There was a west breeze, and it was partially sunny. It was really nice. But Ivan, it was my second day on the job at U.S. Bank 8.5 years ago. And we were talking about payments challenges within the travel industry and talking with a mutual prospect at the time. And I was so intrigued by how much we could do together. And Ivan's just a genius. If you talk to him, the guy's amazing. And it got me. I never looked back after that. And then GBTA was that year. It was my first time to the GBTA conference. And I'm like, these people are fun. What is going on? Because payments, card, it's okay, banking, whatever. But the travel industry is super fun, as you all know, just being here. And I'm so happy to be back at Symposium and partnered with you guys and WTI and Ivan. And so too bad Ivan couldn't be here to hear the story. We do have a nice picture.
They do. They're like interlacing their arms and drinking their drinks.
Champagne,
I made them take a photo.
Last
It's hysterical.
symposium. Yeah, it was super fun. So thanks for having me back.
Of course. All right, Jill.
And I'm Jill Kronkowitz. I am the Vice President of Membership, Education, and Engagement with GBTA. I knew in high school that another 4 years of structured education was not for me. And at the same time, my father worked for the airlines, and I was going to lose my benefits. So I went into a trade school, because way back then, they used to have those. And I went to a trade school for travel. Primarily, it focused on tourism. But I was very fortunate in that many of the suppliers, TMCs and other travel suppliers, were recruiting from that travel school. So on my graduation, I was recruited from Rosenbluth International. Those people who are from the area and beyond, I'm sure, are very familiar. And we always had a saying, Rosenbluth makes and the world takes, right? So Rosenbluth had the most amazing training program. But that's how I got into the industry, because I didn't want to lose my benefits.
Love it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pam Zager, Executive Vice President of Operations. Laura, first I want to say thank you for having this topic. It's a really important one. I've been with World Travel now for 9 years, but I've been in the industry for 30 plus years. Now, when we talk about being plopped into a career or a position, I love that, by the way. I wasn't plopped, but I certainly took a journey, and I fell, I tripped, I went backwards. It definitely was a lost soul coming out of high school, really not knowing what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, right? What 18-year-old does. So I decided I was going to do what most women at that time did, which is I went into school for early childhood education. Yeah, those poor children. That was not that was not the right decision for me, but God bless those instructors, those teachers. I have a newfound respect. And so I dabbled in different majors and minors, and I really couldn't find my way. So I found this travel and tourism program that the school had. And I said, well, that sounds like fun. You know, I didn't travel as, a little different than yours. I didn't have those benefits. I didn't travel as a young person. So I said that I'll be able to travel the world. And as you mentioned, those programs back then were predominantly leisure-driven, right? It was travel and tourism. So I did that, and I loved it. But now the important part was, now I need to get a job. Well, here I was, I had, you know, the education for it, but I couldn't find a job. So worked for AAA, doing cars and hotel reservations. Boy, did I do a lot of those. And then as the position opened up, I then ventured into leisure travel, then became a supervisor of a reservation leisure center, and then went into leisure training, because now, mind you, when I entered the workforce in travel, that was before the World Wide Web. So in order for you to book a trip, you had to use a travel agent. That's how you did it. And then the World Wide Web came about. And so the industry started changing, started evolving. And so we back then used to have these combined offices. You'd have a leisure office and a corporate office. It'd be one office, and you would do both. But then technology started evolving, and there was this thing called an online booking tool. Have you heard of one? Right? And I said, wow, this is really intriguing. I think I want to learn more about this. So I built a department of one to build this tool and to support the tool and to take online support calls. And then it just evolved from there, and then there was no looking back. So here it is, 32, 33 plus years later, and in that, I knew I wanted to stay in travel, but I wanted to start being more of an influencer, so I went back to school while doing this, you know, for business. So being able to combine what's truly a passion, you know, into that leadership role to hopefully, you know, make a difference.
Awesome, thank you, Pam. All right, more interaction. Pick a buddy at your table and turn to them and share how you got into the travel industry. I'll give you about 30 seconds, a minute. All right, so back to the panel. So what does mentorship mean to all of you? And who has been your most impactful mentor in your career?
All right. I didn't go over this answer with Laura because I wasn't sure how she'd react. So I'm.
Oh God. Oh gosh.
So I have two. And the first one is going to be probably controversial, but I call her my anti-mentor. And this was a person that was really most impactful in my career, because of the fact that she did not support me. She, you know, it was exactly who I didn't want to be, right? And who I didn't want in a leadership role. And as a woman and you know, working in manufacturing, I work in mostly male-dominated industries for my entire career. It sounds crazy, but I credit her a lot with my development, because sometimes you have to be shown what you don't want to be to understand what you want to be. So
great answer.
That's my controversial answer. My second answer is I am lucky enough to have one of the most wonderful mentors that we just kicked off a relationship with, Liz Mandarino. And, you know, it took me a long time in my career to get up the courage. Liz was the first person that I just outright asked, hey, would you mind, you know, putting some time on the calendar? I would love to talk to you about your career and, you know, development and just kind of how things went. And it took me a while to get up the courage. I think I had known you for quite a while before I did it. And I of course said, oh, well, if you don't have time. And, you know, I was completely prepared to be let down. But of course, she was incredibly gracious. And just in the short few months that we've started that mentorship, I've learned so much from her. And So I have both sides, right? I have the anti-mentor, and then I have the ideal mentor, so.
Yeah, definitely.
That's so sad.
That's a
That
sad
first one
story.
is so sad. I'm trying
I
to
know.
process it.
Amanda and I have had many drinks over those stories.
So I have a different story. In my mentorships, they haven't been structured. When I got to U.S. Bank, I knew I was going to crash and burn. It's an 80,000 employee company. I had never worked at a big organization before. I was always out of Southern California consulting, usually working for myself. And so I searched out two different people, Sarah Fortune, who runs our relationship managers, and Chuck Gaston, who ran our sales team, both in corporate payments. And I didn't ask them to be my mentor. I asked them for help. I said, I'm going to crash and burn here. I don't know how to navigate this size company. You have so many products, divisions, silos, and all the silos seem to hate me. I don't know why. They don't want to talk to me. And so through the first couple years, they helped me so much, and they actually became very good friends of mine, and then they became advocates for me, and without them, I would not have survived U.S. Bank. I know it for sure, and they know that too, I'm sure, now that they know me. But yeah.
That's great. Jill.
So for me, mentorship is really about being able to see things differently than you normally would. So someone who can open you up to a different perspective and help you start to be able to form ways to see those other perspectives outside of your own without that prompting. And I've been unbelievably fortunate to have had some really amazing leaders in my career, early days especially, that were able to do that for me and to do it in a context that I was very familiar and comfortable with already. And so I look at it as a role of my own leadership, and the style that I take with my team is to be a mentor to them. I think that's one of my most important responsibilities. And I've had mentors that were my leaders, that were my peers, that were people that reported to me. There are people that have different experiences from me that can give me different perspectives and help me in turn give other perspectives to people who maybe don't have that yet.
Absolutely. When I think of mentorship, I think it's twofold, is how I think of it. You have a formalized mentorship, and then you have an informal mentorship. And I don't think many realize that on the informal, which is a natural relationship between two people or multiple people, it can be equally, if not more impactful than even a formalized. Now, they don't have to be mutually exclusive by any stretch of the means, but when you look at those relationships, and I say every day I'm being mentored by, we have a fantastic senior leadership team at World Travel, and I learn every day because everybody has their strengths and they have their weaknesses. And it's really important to understand internally of what those are. So as you listen and if you observe people doing their job and they're approaching it a little bit differently, where maybe it's your weakness and it's their strength, you learn from that. That is mentorship. On the flip side, when you look at something more formalized, that gives people opportunities that may not have had that opportunity before, meaning that it's a formalized program and maybe a person didn't know how to approach it. So for example, I have a mentee. It's a result of our own internal mentorship program. I kept her on, so we meet monthly, and sometimes that meeting is just, let's talk about the challenges that you had for this month, this week, whatever that time frame is, and to be able to help her see it in a different way. So when I think about mentorship, going back to the original question, I do look at it as every single day as surrounding yourself by smart people and talented people and recognizing your weaknesses, their strengths, and then capitalizing on it. It's okay. That's learning and its evolution and its evolvement.
Awesome. Thanks, Pam. All right, so Amanda, I'm going to come to you. Being the newest one in the travel industry on the panel and coming from a finance background, what are your observations of this new world that you've been plopped into? And what would you tell someone who's being plopped into this or is looking to come into the travel industry?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I found most interesting coming into travel is that, in finance, like you work in finance and in business, and it's very, very structured, right? Numbers are what they are. There's not a lot you can do to change them but in travel, it's ever changing, right? And then B, it's so deeply personal for people. even when you're traveling for business. And I found that to be really interesting because every single person that travels for my company, good, bad, indifferent, will have feedback for me of some kind. And so at first it was incredibly overwhelming because I'm like, okay, I'm really sorry you didn't have a decaf K-cup in your room when you traveled last time, which is an actual complaint that I received. But I don't, did you call the front desk? Well, no. Okay. Would you like me to air freight you like some K-cup? Like, I don't know where you're going with this. But it took me a while to understand, but like everybody, travel is deeply personal. And so it kind of like creates that little bridge between business and your personal life. And it's just really difficult to kind of pull that away from people sometime. And I think especially when we have someone else paying for it, like our companies or whatever it might be, I think it almost adds like another level. Like you have a different expectation of what the service you're going to get, and which is kind of backwards from what you would think, right? So that is kind of the most interesting thing that I've learned. And anyone else that would be in a similar situation, I kind of dove headfirst into travel. Once I received this role, it was during COVID, so travel really wasn't happening for us. But I knew as a traveler that I hated our travel program. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to do, and I knew my contract was expiring, so I'm going to do a full RFP. I'm going to sign up for all the scholarships that GBTA offers for like meetings management and fundamentals of travel management and things like that. I signed up for every scholarship that I could and received all of them. So I did that first with a backup plan of like going and begging my boss if it didn't get through. But I just tried to do as much as I could, and I really tried to dive headfirst into the deep end rather than taking it slowly. And I think I've learned so much because of kind of that method.
Perfect. And you kind of answered it, what your sources of growth and development have been. So that those GBTA trainings, anything else that obviously mentorship with Liz is huge.
Yeah, I think, mentorship, and we always think of mentorship as like this, you look for somebody with more experience and everything else. But like, Laura and I first met, we were introduced by, it was just a very random introduction. Travelport, yes.
RT with Travelport, yeah.
He had reached out to me via LinkedIn without any kind of knowledge, and I met him for lunch one day, and he said, you know what, right away, like, he was like, I have this
crazy girl
that
you're
you
both
should
in
meet.
Ohio.
And he's like, I think you guys will really hit it off, and I think she would be a great resource for you. So he made the introduction, and I consider Laura to be a mentor, and I consider Eileen to be a mentor, and I consider all of the people that I work with at World Travel to be mentors in some capacity because they've all helped me to understand the industry and help to understand what's right, what's wrong, what's traditional, and that was somewhere where I really felt like I had no knowledge on.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. So Jill, GBTA, Amanda just brought up GBTA. Can you share some knowledge about how COVID affected our industry from GBTA's viewpoint?
Yeah, so I don't think our viewpoint is any different than anyone else's, quite frankly, but we do try to sort of summarize, I guess is the right word, the information that's out there. And we also had been doing, you're probably familiar if you've subscribed to any of GBTA's information, there was a monthly poll throughout the pandemic that sort of measured the progress, the changes, the challenges. That shifted to a recovery poll and last year, and then we are now moving forward to a more understanding sort of the aftermath. I can tell you that from our January poll, which is now quarterly instead of monthly, I think you're all probably really happy about that. Suppliers reported, 47% of them reported a smaller staff, and buyers 20% a smaller staff. So that tells you we still have some lasting impacts. I think we all instinctively know that, especially if you've been at a hotel or a restaurant or on an airplane recently. So you sort of understand that. I think the buyers are less visible, but they too are having the similar challenges that remain. The good news is that most of them really are expecting that staffing to return this year. So that's really helpful.
Good. So tell us about your role at GBTA and how GBTA supports the travel industry.
So my role as the overseeing the membership and education and engagement, I started there about 2 years ago with engagement and education. And so in that role, I oversee our GBTA Academy, which is really a career path for industry professionals on both sides, buyer and supplier, and helps them learn whether they're the fundamental skills or increasing skills along the way, all the way through master's level education, so that you can develop your leadership skills and your marketing skills, your financial skills to be more well-rounded and move into different directions with the knowledge that you already have. As she said, we had scholarships for a period of time. We actually have started offering our Fundamentals of Business Travel Management course complimentary for members. So I'm really excited about that, and the response has been amazing. We had planned to offer 3 this year. We've had to double that because of the demand. So
wow.
That's, yeah, we're very excited about the level of interest there. And so the support that we provide is really through education, and that's whether that's through the academy or through our committees that produce content and deliver it in various forms, both virtual and in person at our events. We also have mentoring programs that are more formal in nature, and then of course networking is pretty significant.
Awesome, thank you. So Pam, let's shift to kind of the operations side and what World Travel is seeing. So how has the operations side been affected, and what is World Travel doing to combat that?
How much time do we have?
I know, not a lot. Apparently, this clock goes quick when you're up here.
No, it's a very fair and good question, and an important question, to be answered. First, I think it's important to mention that there's a perception out there, going back many years ago, as I mentioned, when the internet became a craze, that the travel agent, and I say agent deliberately, the travel agent positions were becoming obsolete. That is not true. But what we've learned over the years is that evolution in technology is a great thing. So, for example, there was a quote that I've lived by for many years now. I keep pulling it out when people start feeling a little down, and it talks about the evolution of the travel advisor profession just might be an example of Darwinism at its finest. It's a story of adaptation, survival, and revival that has pushed the profession not just to iterate, but to be born anew. So if you look back to where we were, 20, 30 years ago, as I mentioned, it was more fulfillment to where we are today. Technology has allowed us to be able to be more consultative, to be able to bring the globe closer, figuratively speaking, of course, and to be able to provide services that weren't able to be provided many years ago. So, it used to be a travel agent. It is now called travel advisor or travel consultant, and I say both those terms because ASTA came out years ago with the title of travel advisor. We surveyed all of our travel consultants and said, what would you like to be called? What would you like your title to be? And they voted for travel consultant. So now we've transitioned from travel agent to travel consultant. So we look now through evolution of what do we do now, because the travel schools don't really exist. There's hospitality programs. Pre-COVID, we knew that our frontline population, which I'm not going to go through our stats, but I can say from an industry perspective, there's 2 different polls that were done, and the average travel consultant today, based on the poll that you read, is 50 plus, said one, and 55 plus was another. So there definitely is, and if that's your average age, there's definitely a need of bringing that next generation into that workforce. So we have retirements that are occurring faster than we have, that next generation coming in. So pre-COVID, what we did is we partnered with a school. It was Pittsburgh Technical College. We actually have some alum in the room that actually went there. But what we learned was all of our competitors were using this school to try to get interns, because they actually had a hospitality program that had travel, and it was a little bit more of the corporate focus versus just travel and tourism. Well, I didn't want to have to compete for that space, so because we dedicated a resource internally to do strictly this is Patty Capinas. She reports under Monica Lawrence, who I just want to make a shout out to, because without her, I don't know if we would have been able to get this program off the ground that we have. But what we did is, because she's an alumni there, is we met with the school and said, we're going to mirror your curriculum And that way you can have students that work in part-time, earn, make some wages, and then learn as they go along. And that started out pretty okay. We were little bumps in the road, but then COVID hit. Well, we were in no position, as nobody in the industry was in the position to be able to pay, part-time work for this type of program. So we had to put the brakes on that. And truth be told, we still have that program. It's actually on their website. They advertise it. It's beautiful, and it's a shout out to us. So I pushed those competitors aside, said, "Give me those people." But then what we realized is that now we need to do something more, because again, that next generation workforce. The retirements are happening quicker than they're coming in. So we officially are launching World Travel Academy.
Woohoo!
Yes, and what's exciting about this academy is that after, you have to apply for it, you have to be accepted, no different than any type of certification that you would get from a higher ed. And so we partnered with PTC, and we partnered with the Travel Institute. For those of you who don't know what the Travel Institute is, they've been around a very long time. They are an organization that just helps to educate for the betterment of the industry. So when the advisors or the consultants graduate, if they pass, they actually get a Travel Institute certificate. So it isn't a true accreditation. And so, of course, if they pass the test and they're students that have really excelled, we'll bring them into the world travel environment. So with that, though, there's a balancing act that we have, because as you will learn earlier, that NDC word and the type of technology that the GDS has used to be able to support that is a little bit different than what our workforce is used to and how they fulfill today. So we have very much of a challenge of a balancing act of being able to keep the business, moving forward in the legacy state as well as evolving into the new state. But we're very excited about the academy. I just think that it allows us to build the programs that we know that's needed out there. And as a result, Monica's team has been recruiting from universities as well as high schools, getting the word out. And based on the feedback I'm seeing and the pictures I'm seeing, there's a lot of curiosity about it, because let's face it, nobody knows about corporate travel when you're 18 years old or 21 years old, depending on where you are in your career or your education. So again, we're very excited about that.
Awesome. Thank you, Pam. It's really exciting. So, Tori, I'm going to jump over to you. So what does U.S. Bank see in the travel space? And tell us about how the partnership is going with World Travel.
There's a lot going on. We've circled the travel industry for quite some time we broke our corporate card off just specifically for travel, so you can get better data, better control, better visibility. That wasn't good enough. We also created a virtual card that you can integrate into TMCs, which we have done now with WTI. And we took it one step further, that you can also push a corporate card into the mobile wallet from the TMC. Because we don't want to force you to come to our environment as a bank, which I know sounds weird. You would think we would always want our logo in front of you. But that's not how we operate in partnership land, in my world. We want to meet you where you're at. And so how do we create a secret sauce, meet you where you're at, and where you're at is within WTI. So partnering with Ivan to figure out what's the best user experience we can create within the environment you're already in, that's my job, and that's what I love doing. And so we are getting much closer to the travel industry. Something interesting has happened just in the last 2 years, or since COVID hit. There's been a massive consolidation in the market, with American Express buying Agencia, Frosch got bought by JP Morgan Chase, Lola got bought by Capital One. We acquired Travel Bank, Travel and Expense for the lower end of the market. And so now we are actually a TMC as well. I mean, we're nowhere near what you are, Jim, for the record, and nor do we want to be, because we're serving a different demographic altogether. And so I say that because the way you manage WTI through the pandemic was brilliant and really great for us, because we get to be partnered with a really stable company that has a great vision. In U.S. Bank, we're known as being very stable, very secure, put your cash with us, put the picture of your dog on your checks, but we're also very innovative, and it's fun to work with a company like WTI on that innovation. So we're just getting started.
Yeah, definitely. And more on World VC coming up with George and I believe Natalie. They'll be sharing some updates on that too. So really appreciate it, Tori. So Jill, I'm going to come back to you. So as Pam just announced what we're doing at World Travel to look towards the future, what is GBTA doing with innovation and recruitment and growing the industry?
This is really exciting stuff, by the way. First time I'm hearing it, and I'm very excited. We will definitely talk more about that. There are a number of things that we're working through, because beyond sort of helping to elevate and educate those who have chosen this as their profession, like the studies that you were citing, our average member has over 20 years of experience. That's the majority of our membership, and so it mirrors our industry, right? And so there is absolutely that recognition that we need to bring more talent into the industry. We need that next generation of workers to choose the business travel industry. And as we all know, most of us fell into it or found our way into it in some way, shape, or form that wasn't a straight path. And so we take that very seriously. That's part of our responsibility. So we've got a few things that are in the works right now. We are very close to implementing a student membership for college and university enrollees, identifying how we can get to work with different universities to make sure that not just those in the hospitality majors, right, because that's sort of low-hanging fruit, what you think of first, but business majors. Just in conversations I've had with students that have chosen business majors, it's because they don't know where they want to go, right, but they want that education. So we really need to make sure that we're helping those that are not sure their direction choose this industry that, you know, as Tori said, is not only fun, but we are such a diverse and inclusive industry, and that is something that sits very much in line with the values of today's youth that are moving into the workforce. And so we need to showcase that. So how can we do that? So those are some things that we're talking about. How do we get into colleges and universities and help them understand what the business travel industry is all about, creating that student membership that is affordable and aligned with their own education goals. One of the ways we're working towards that is developing a brief course on an introduction to business travel, right? Helping just very surface level, what is it in the first place? Why should you even be interested? And then, of course, we've got our Win It one-on-one mentoring, which was launched last year. We're very excited about that. The Win It by GBTA program launched a formalized one-on-one mentoring program, also free to members. And for those young professionals who have started in the industry, we have our Ladders program, which is just, it's a very structured, immersive program that works in group mentoring. And it brings young professionals, those who are sort of early career, into a cohort, which is where their sweet spot is, right? They'd rather work in a small group. It provides them with an alumni advisor, someone who's been through the program before, as well as an industry mentor, so someone very senior and experienced within the industry, to help them develop a solutions-based project. There's a theme every year, and this year it is Get Inspired, Look Beyond Travel to Drive Change. And so we've got teams that are grouped together. It is the largest year ever, so we see this interest in continuing their growth and their expansion in the industry. And it's just such a popular program, also free to members. So it's, you know, one of the things we want to do is be able to bring in those students at that initial level, introduce them to the industry, get them hooked, right? They're going to love us because we all know once we're in, we are not leaving. We are lifers. And so once we got them, then let's get them through the Ladders program and introduce them to some people and get them to start building their own little networks, and then put them through the one-on-one program mentoring with Win It, and help move them through the industry and advance their careers at a pace that is palatable.
Awesome. Thank you, Jill. I know Amanda and I are both involved in the Ladders program. There are some other people in the room. Mike is a mentor. I'm an alumni advisor. Are you alumni advisor, mentee? Mentee. Anyone else in ladders in the room? Yeah, Matt? Yep, awesome. It's a great program. We're lucky enough to have organizations that support us. Liz and Jim support us in that, and it's really amazing. But it shows you more of the travel industry, not just your individual silo. It's not just, oh, Laura knows about TMC, but I don't know anything else. I have other people that I can reach out to if I have a question about airlines or hotels. You get to know a lot of people, so it's really great. So Tori, we're gonna switch and talk a little bit about organizations and being involved in your organization. So at a large organization like US Bank, how do you feel supported and how do you advocate for yourself in a large organization like that?
The support question at US Bank is easy. They're incredibly supportive, both financially, psychologically. They want you to succeed. So on my team, in January, I sit down with every member of my team and say, what do you want to do for your own personal development? And sometimes it's professional development, sometimes it's personal development. What do you want to do this year? And I do it early in January because there's a bucket of money that we can get to. And if you get to it quickly, everybody gets approved. So my team always gets approved very fast. And so I have the very happy, smart team because of it, because they get to do what they want to do. And sometimes it's right in line with what we're working on, and sometimes it's not. Because I want to make sure if they leave my team, they're going somewhere where they're happy, either internally or externally. I want to make sure they're on the path they want to be on. I don't want to force them into my path or the bank's path. And because of it, we have great synergy with the team, great education, and they are all very, very committed to US Bank and to my team. It's nice. But if they do want to leave the team, we make sure, hopefully, that we find a really good place within US Bank for them to work because we know they're rock stars. As far as advocating for myself, I don't have to, which is great. I was mentioning Chuck and Sarah. They do a great job advocating for me. Probably 8 years ago, I was joking with my boss, Bradley Matthews, and he was going into a meeting with our chairman and all these big shots. And I said, hey, say my name 3 times. And he looked at me and kind of chuckled. And then I did it the next time, and he was like, I'm going to do it. And so he started saying my name 3 times in every presentation around these executives, and they started thinking, who is Tori Passons? And so it was great because I had Chuck, Sarah, and Bradley all saying my name 3 times, and suddenly these executives felt like they knew me. And so I tried to do that for Sylvia Aldana sitting back there. She basically runs my team. She was my first hire. And so I tried to do that in front of our executives now because I have this amazing team. And so if you have someone you love on your team, say their name 3 times. And if you want to be seen at your company, get your boss to say your name 3 times. It's really fun. It's kind of a game. And so I'm going to have to say Bradley Matthews' name one more time on stage just so I can tell him I said his name 3 times.
I love that.
Bradley Matthews.
Oh, there we go. That was
Can I just add to that?
yeah,
Okay.
of course.
So I wanted to give a flip side because I find it really interesting. For solar, we're a manufacturing company and we are very, very cost conscious. So as Tori sits and talks about US Bank and we sit and talk about development goals and we put budget in place, we have nothing. My professional development budget for the last 5 years that I've worked there has been 0. I can ask. Sometimes a little something here or there comes in, but it's not, even if I'm given something, it's not a lot, right? And I think, some of the executives are finally starting to notice, we need to invest more in our employees because it does, lead to employee retention and employee happiness and all of that. But I wanted to give the flip side. So I've been to every symposium since I became a client of World Travel. I've been to every GBTA since I took over travel. And the way that I do that is I'm very careful and calculated, basically, in developing a plan for myself to sell this to my boss or leadership or whoever it might be to try to offset those costs as much as possible. And I mean, when I first started, I would get down to like, well, I'll carpool with Laura to and from the airport. So like, yeah. You know, so, and I'm pretty sure she's gonna have the rental car, so I won't.
Good.
And, you know, they usually serve us breakfast, so I won't have that meal expense, and so on and so forth. And like, I would, you know, say I can use UATP funds for my airline ticket, you know. And so I used to really try, like I would put the effort in, and it sounds kind of over the top, and it probably was a little bit, but I put the effort in to tell them, like, this is a very minimal investment for you for maximum benefit for me. So I just kind of wanted to add that because I think not all companies are so lucky to be able to just sit down with your boss and say, hey, these are the things I want to focus on. These are the events that I think would be beneficial to me, and will you give me money to do it? And a lot of times that doesn't happen, so.
Right, and it's important as organizations and being a part of an organization to advocate for yourself and for the organizations to see that it is important. And Ladders isn't just, we're going to Nashville to party. It's, we're going to network and meet people and learn, and it's really, it builds your career, and it's a great foundation. All right, so the last question I have, we're gonna do everyone with our few minutes left. How do you think the role of a travel manager or someone who touches travel has shifted, and how can they stand out in their organization? So how, obviously it's shifted after COVID. We've talked about that and talked about, you know, where you guys sit in the organization and who you report to, how you communicate. But how can being influencing travel, how can that help people stand out? How do you guys see that? So Jill, we'll start with you.
So I think the most important thing in terms of standing out, and Tori, I think your strategy is amazing, right? That's great. Have somebody say your name 3 times in every meeting, and then they feel like they know you, they need to know you. But it's really important that you reach across the departments. You have to align with your organizational goals, and that's what's going to get you buy-in for the goals of your own that are within travel. I learned, you know, a lot at the roundtable I sat in this morning in terms of where travel managers are seeing some more immediate trends, managing through blended travel, and things, and remote workers, right? Remote worker policies, creating local travel policies. So those were some really good nuggets. I think what we're also seeing from a longer term perspective is the evolution and expectations around sustainability and DE&I, and how that is coming into the travel policy. But that has to mesh with your departmental or with your organizational goals overall, right? So I think that just underscores the importance of making sure you're connecting with different business unit or department heads, understanding how you are associated with what they're doing, what they need from the travel department, and being able to marry the goals and the initiatives together.
If I could just add to that, you know, you hit on some really key important notes on there, because in order to stand out within your organization is when you do that, as you said, to be aligned with the departmental goals, but if you want to bring awareness to the C-level, right, is you marry it to the vision and the mission of the organization, right? Because anyone at that C-level is running the business based on that mission and vision and where they see themselves, right? So whether it be, you know, a wellness, a savings, a safety, because the program encompasses so much more today than it ever has. I mean, just throughout today, what we've heard, right? Where it reports into, what the key focuses are, what policy changes have occurred. So bringing all that together, aligning it exactly what you said, but then marrying it into that vision and mission. What's my mission today, and what's my vision for tomorrow, right?
No, that was great. Tori?
Mine's technology, embracing technology. And I know we're joking about it, but embracing WTI and the technology behind it to get your bonus, to get your promotion, to get what you deserve. And if you embrace technology in the right way, I'm going to use pushing virtual cards to the mobile wallet as an example for that recruit coming in to make their experience so much better. You look so much better than the competition. Or that guy, Carl, you don't want to give a corporate card to, so you just give him a trip card to really keep it under control. Sorry if there's any Carls in the room. but by doing that, you have better visibility, better control, which highlights you within your organization, which should get you to that endpoint of bonus or visibility up the ladder. So I truly believe embracing technology can help get you there and make your company stronger.
Agreed. Yeah, and using world travel to make you look better is huge. We just met with a prospective client that's about to come on board, and she's doing all these manual reports. And she's like, yeah, my current TMC, I asked them if they could do that, and George was mind blown, like, no, we'll do that all for you. We're your partner. Bring those reports to us and say, I'm doing this manually, can you help? How can we fix this? So communication is really key. Amanda?
Yeah, so I think my thought on the travel manager role, and one of the biggest things that I noticed when I took this role over was it's an often neglected role in a corporation, right? Everybody just assumes travel happens, and it just does, and somebody manages it, and there must be somebody that I don't know.
The man behind the curtain.
Right, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
We've got a little Oz going on
yeah.
right now, yeah. So what I've really taken away is trying to educate people on the value of our program. One of the largest things that I saw for non-compliance, like when booking airline tickets and hotels and things like that, was they didn't understand the duty of care portion. And I'm really trying to promote the duty of care, because we have a lot of business in the Asia Pacific region and around the world. And, you know, I want our travelers to understand it's not that we don't want you, we don't want you going to delta.com to book a flight or whatever, but there's a reason beyond just, you know, booking on our own site that, you know, that enables us to get you out of a country if there's a conflict that breaks out. If you break your leg and they don't have a proper medical care, we can get you airlifted out of there. There's so many different benefits. If there's, God forbid, an event that happens somewhere, we know that that person is there, and we can contact them and try to get them safely out of there. And so I had this conversation recently with somebody who was booking travel for an intern, and he's like, oh, well, he doesn't have like a profile, so I just book him outside the system. And he didn't think it was a big deal, right? But then I was like, do you understand that when you send him over to Europe and something were to happen, A, I have no idea where he is, and B, I can't help him. You know, and we pay a lot of money to have a service to be able to help those people. So, and now he's like, oh, I had no idea. So I think it's just a little bit more education, you know, is becoming the role of the travel manager versus just policy and kind of being Oz, right? You have to be the face of it, and you have to make them aware of the valuableness of that.
Yeah, definitely. That was a lot of really great points. And I think it just proves that with travel, it touches so many different parts of the organization, and there's so many areas where you can stand out as a travel manager or someone who's overseeing travel and advocate for yourself and your career. So thank you all so much. This was really a great panel. I hope you all enjoyed.